Jets! 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 Jets!
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. 78 degrees, Jets football, and we're winning. That's what's going on today. That's why everybody's so psyched. This isn't no happenstance. This is a guarantee, just like Joe Namath said. See that?
There are few things in life you cannot put a price on. Loyalty, tradition, fierce passion. Today is a gigantic family reunion because finally, they're back.
Kiss you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah! You want to run or you want to duck down? You want to duck to the over and get onto the bench and stay there.
You play to win the game.
My message for the fans, we're all frustrated with where we are right now.
Jets, 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 Jets.
Well, hello, everybody. What is happening? Welcome to the Thursday Thick of It. I am, of course, GreenBean. I am not trying a new look. I am quite literally outside right now. That you see behind me, that is the outside of a brick house that I am just nestling as close as I can to because that's where the internet is. So that's what I'm doing. I'm freezing. It's getting colder by the minute out here, but I'm doing it because I want to hang out with you and I'm in a great mood. And I'm going to bring on somebody that he helps me get into an even better mood. I'm going to bring on the co-host with the absolute most, Frankie from Flatbush from Pittsburgh, everybody. Here he comes. What's up, Frankie?
Where else would you rather be on a Thursday besides the Thursday Thick of It? We're taking wide receivers, making them tight ends. We're signing defensive ends. We're doing all these things. We're getting ready for the Senior Bowl. And where else would you rather be on a Thursday evening than the Thursday Thick of It with GreenBean and Frankie?
That's right. I couldn't imagine a better place to be. I'm currently at a horse farm, Frankie. I'm living for this week at a horse farm, and I'm outside, and I couldn't wait to be here with you. And quite frankly, the guests that we have tonight, I've had them on one time before. We did a Monday Night Mock, and it was probably one of the better times I've ever had online. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not saying that just because they're here. It was an absolute hoot. So we have the goddamn Jet Show with us tonight, Frankie, and I can't wait to bring them on. But before we do, first thing I want to do is say hello to some folks in the chat. If you don't mind, Frankie, if that's okay. I want to say hello to Anders is here, and Braden Bethwaite came in nice and early. He was here, I don't know, 2 hours ago saying, hey, I got questions. So, Braden, I'm glad you're here. John Hepburn's here. Scott Wilson. Kelly McTavish is back. Robert Killian. So good to have you guys. Mitt Flair. E-Rock is back, Frankie. Sneakers to Boots. FOC, Follower of Christ, is here. Joey Venezia. Matt Simon, my old buddy from the Greenhouse days, is here. Mo Lake Louiso, and so many more. I love all you guys coming in. Gitmo Bob, Owen, Salty Nuts, Magoo is here. Everybody's pouring in. New York Sports MC, Mark Riz, and we are happy that you're here. But Frankie, before we get started, I want to pay homage to our sponsor for this show. DraftKings has been kind enough to sponsor this episode of the Thursday Thick of It, and we're going to hear just a few short words from DraftKings. The NFL playoffs are here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official betting partner of the NFL, is kicking things off with a huge offer. Counting down to Super Bowl 56, they're going to give all new customers using the promo code GreenBean 56-1 odds. That's putting just $5 down, and you win $280 in free bets if the team you choose wins the game. It's $5. All you do is take $5, put it down on any NFL team to win any NFL playoff game. If that team wins, all new customers using the promo code GreenBean are going to get $280 back in free bets.
It's that simple. And if you don't have sportsbook in your area, don't even worry. DraftKings has something for you too. All people everywhere can play their daily fantasy contests for huge prizes, and DraftKings is also giving all new customers the chance to win millions of dollars in total prizes with your first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, use promo code GreenBean and get 56 to 1 odds. Again, $5, win 280 back in free bets. That's promo code GreenBean, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official betting partner of the NFL. The NFL.
Whoops. And thank you to DraftKings. It was just ended. I was going to end it, and it ended. So I started it again. You know how that goes, Frank. I want to thank DraftKings. Again, use the promo code GreenBean. The link is in the top of the description of this very video, and you will get 56 to 1 odds by using the promo code GreenBean. So, Frankie, it's time, I think. I think I've yucked it up enough. We've said hello enough, and it's time to get this show officially started with our guests. Let's bring them on. I'm going to do it real fast. You'll see. I'm going to go first. Ladies first with Kimberly, John, and Tom. Look at all the faces in here. What's up, goddamn Jet Show? How you doing?
Hello.
Hey.
Doing good. Happy to be back with you.
Yes.
Yeah. It really is. I'm honest to God. I've been looking forward to this. We were lucky enough to have some quality time just 2 days ago, or maybe it was yesterday. I don't know how we say it. When we released it, but that was a good time too. And it was nice to meet Tom, who I want to say hello to first. Tom, you're the newest member of the goddamn Jet Show. How long you been with him, and what's your background with the Jets, if you don't mind giving us a minute?
Yeah, I mean, John and I go way back. We went to school together, and when the infancy of the goddamn Jets was going on its Instagram live days, I was a frequent guest of the show. And as a Jets fan, I go back from birth. I'm an unfortunate, my dad wanted me to learn humility, so he made me a Jets fan. So that's gone well. I've got some face painted pictures from when I was a kid at 98, sitting in the bar, being picked up on shoulders to do the JETS chant. Nice. And at halftime, we were feeling great, but we all know how that played out. But really excited to be on and having a great time with you guys.
So you're saying you were brainwashed, basically?
Yeah.
It's important. Look, I have kids too. It's very important to teach them, like you said, humility. It's very important that we learn how to cheer really loud, get really happy, and walk out of a huge building with thousands of other unhappy people, completely dejected. There's a lesson in there somewhere, Tom. I know it's there. I don't know what it is yet, but it better be a lesson because I've done it far too many times. But next, we're going to talk to Kimberly. You have an interesting connection to the Jets. Why don't you let us know, let the people in the chat know what it is that you did for the New York Jets and how long you've been with the goddamn Jets show?
Sure. Well, for those of you that don't know me, I was an NFL cheerleader for the New York Jets for 5 seasons. So I cheered on the Jets flight crew. Thank you. Cheered for the Jets flight crew from 2013 to 2017 and went to the Pro Bowl in 2018 in Orlando, Florida. So that's kind of when I retired from NFL cheerleading and to pursue other stuff. So 5 years. It was an amazing time. Probably the best 5 years of my life, to be honest with you. Some really good times with the Jets, some really bad times. I mean, bad times, but there were some good ones in there. And I've been with the goddamn Jets. Same like Tom, I was actually a frequent guest for a long time and then jumped on board with the guys, I'd say a little over a year now. And it's been so much fun to do. I got to thank my co-host John Saponaro for not just being a great friend, but just bringing me on board this crazy ride we call the goddamn Jets. And it's been a blast just to be able to talk about the Jets, even now post flight crew days. So super fun.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. It's one of those things. It's like, you don't realize that there are so many ways that you can be connected to the New York Jets. Like we think head coach, coaches, players, maybe medical or something. But it's like, I've met, flight crew members. I've met one of the guys that worked in the equipment room. And there's just so many connections to the Jets. And I think I'm actually finding that I'm fascinated by all of it. All of it, like anything that can be connected to this team, finding out what's going on. Like you were on the field for the games.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that. How cool is that?
Oh, it's so cool. I miss it every day. I actually went to the Buccaneers Jets game, that infamous game where Antonio Brown had a moment on the sideline. That was fun. But it's so surreal to be able to say that I did that and I had that experience for 5 years. That was actually the first time I ever went to an NFL game, was standing on the sidelines, being a part of the Jets experience. So I miss it every day, and I still follow the girls and what they're doing, and I'm super proud of them. And it was such a great experience. It really was.
Yeah, I think I would miss it too, honest to God. So John Saponaro is, and now tell me if I get this right, John.
Okay.
Are you currently traveling as like the spokesman or like the announcer, for lack of a better term, for the Monster Truck Tour? Is that what you're doing?
Yes. So actually that's where Kim and I met. Funny enough, because I'm from Brooklyn. She's from Staten Island. We didn't know each other growing up, but we grew up about 15 miles or so away from each other. But Kim and I both work for Monster Jam. I am a desk announcer at Monster Jam on one tour, and she is a pit reporter. So very similar to like a sideline reporter on a different tour. So Kim and I don't see each other every week, but we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. I follow you both on Instagram, and I see it's fun. It's not something I see many other people that I follow doing. So I find it to be interesting. Now, John, why don't you take the moment and let everybody know where they can find you? We had a couple people comment in the comment section, or at least one, I should say. I saw that he can't find your YouTube, but you guys aren't necessarily focused on YouTube. You do other things. Why don't you let everybody know where that is before we break into all the thoughts and stuff on the Jets?
Perfect. You can find us. We're mostly a podcast at this point. We may in the coming season break into some YouTube stuff and kind of repost things elsewhere. But right now you can find us every week wherever you listen to your podcast. If you just search the Goddamn Jets, you will find us. That's across Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, all those places. And I'm sure even more, but those are the top 4. And you can follow the show at Goddamn Jets Pod. So whether that's on Instagram or on Twitter, it's at Goddamn Jets Pod. And we post links every week to our show and all that fun stuff. We have some good guests on like GreenBean, but usually it's me, Kim, and Tom doing what we do, talking about the New York Jets. So you can find us there. And if you search the Goddamn Jets on YouTube, you should be able to find it. But, we're not super active on there, like you said, not at this point. So.
Yeah, you'll find something. You'll
find something. I don't know what you'll find if it's us, but you'll find something.
Yeah. Well, and just so everybody knows, the links to their homepage for their podcast and to their Instagram page are both in the description, and you can click on either one and you'll find them. They're good follows, and it's a great show. But so let's get into some Jets, and then Frankie and I are going to kind of go back and forth asking you some questions here. But I want this to just kind of go organically, but I want to start with this. I'm really curious, and I'll start with you, Kimberly, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Zack Wilson, we used a number 2 overall pick on him last year, and he came in, and there were people saying, Zach's going to throw for 4,700 yards this year, 35 touchdowns. They were calling him a hybrid between Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, and there were some pretty high expectations. It didn't exactly work out that way, but he did have kind of a settling in period, I'll call it, at the end of the year, no picks and all that. What do you think about Zack Wilson and his rookie year? And are you okay with him as the franchise quarterback moving forward?
I definitely was one of those people that was like, he's going to be everything. I definitely was on that bandwagon for sure. And John and Tom can attest to that. But I thought he had a pretty solid rookie year. I mean, yeah, there were some growing pains, but what do you expect when you have a new head coach, basically a whole new scheme, a whole new team? So you're going to have growing pains. But I think overall, he did pretty well for himself. I've always said this on the podcast. He is the guy. I think he is our franchise quarterback of the future. He does have the talent and he does have the arm. And I think having this freshman year now behind him is definitely a learning experience, as with anyone going into their rookie season. And I think now that him and Robert Saleh, they know exactly what they need to do in the offseason to then get them to where they need to be competitively going into 2022. So I've always been a fan of Zack Wilson. I think he's always been the guy. And I just feel like overall he had a pretty decent rookie season.
Yeah. So I feel kind of similarly. I definitely was not on the 4,500 yards thing. I was telling people, I'm like, guys, you might want to settle down a little bit with that one. But Frankie, why don't you take a shot over here?
Well, I think what we could ask too is, and maybe we start with John on this one, is, in terms of our draft picks. So we got the off season. We're the kings of the off season. Of course, the off season is our season. We cannot lose. It's impossible for the Jets to lose. But so, one of the things that's going on now is people are getting ready for the draft, and we have 2 top 10 first round draft picks. So if you had to say, should we spend those on both on defense? Should we be looking at a wide receiver? Those seem to be the things that people are saying is one of those will definitely be defense, but should the other one be defense? Should it be a wide receiver? Should it be something else? What are your thoughts on our first 2 picks?
Well, I mean, look, the goal is to get Zack Wilson as many weapons as possible. If you look beyond the numbers, like Kim was talking about just a couple minutes ago, Zach had like the most drops in the NFL. You got to get him. You got to get him weapons. You have to get him a tight end. Certainly, you got to make sure that you're solidifying the wide receiver room. I think they found their running back with Michael Carter. I think Ty Johnson is a nice change of pace guy. I think they can go out and get a third running back either later in the draft or in free agency. So I think that's kind of sorted. For me, you look at the 32nd ranked defense, and I think you have to start at the defense. I think when it's all said and done, either Hutchinson or Thibodeau will be there when the Jets pick at 4, and I think that's the obvious choice. Get another edge rusher, pair him with Carl Lawson. That's where I would go. 10 starts to get a little tricky for me. I think you could take the center. I think you can take Linderbaum at 10. I think maybe that's where I would go. Again, super early here. But I think you have to start with the defense. I know there's been a lot of talk about not being able to go and take a guy like Kyle Hamilton at 4 because nobody takes safeties at 4. If the guy is a football player, if he's going to be a good football player, you take him. They have no safeties basically on their roster at all right now. It's Ashton Davis, and that's it. And I don't feel comfortable with that. And I also think that you can get wide receivers elsewhere. Devontae Adams, he probably won't be a free agent, but maybe he will. There's going to be Allen Robinson. There's a chance they could trade for Amari Cooper or Calvin Ridley, which I wouldn't do. But, there's going to be a wide receiver 1 that you can go get in free agency or via a trade. So with those 2 picks, I think I'm going to go either defense and defense or defense and offensive line because I think you can get players elsewhere to fill those other needs.
Well, interesting because we got a super chat and it's kind of in this vein, and I'm going to bounce it over to Tom for this one. So kind of dovetailing with what John just said, Tom, nobody gives us a good offer for the number 4 pick. Thibodeau, Hutchinson, and Neal are off the board. What's your pick?
I mean, barring a crazy offer for a quarterback, right, which I think is a thing that we need to keep in mind. If the Jets are making that pick at 4, I'm biased. I'm a Notre Dame guy, and I love the idea of taking Hamilton. I think adding a playmaker like that, a dog, a guy who's going to go and make a difference right away in a position of need. I don't care if it's a reach at 4. And honestly, if the happy ending of the Jamal Adams saga is that we had the luxury of being able to take a safety at 4 who actually has cover skills, I'd be very happy to sign up for that. So I would definitely be happy with Hamilton. I think it gives you have the flexibility because of the other capital you have, right? You have 10, you have 35, you have 38. If you were locked into 1 pick, maybe you reach or maybe you try to trade down, for something else of need. But I'd be very happy with Hamilton, and I would love to see what Saleh would do with him in that defense.
Yeah, Salmon Jets, I got to say, I'm disappointed. If you wanted to make it a hard question, you should have said Hamilton 2. Yeah. Like it should have been Thibodeau, Hutchinson, Neal, and Hamilton. Because now what are you going to do? Do you really do this with the number 4 pick? Or like John said, do you go defense or do you reach for a wide receiver? Nobody's calling for a trade. You have to make the pick. Anyway, I do thank you for the super chat, Salmon Jets. And it's an interesting conversation, And Frankie, I got to say, I'm surprised that you went so fast for the jugular of the draft. I'm surprised you just shot the arrow right into their neck. Because look, we can talk about it all day, but like Frankie said earlier, we can't lose the offseason technically, but we can lose the offseason. Like right now, and I'll get your thoughts on this. There was an interview that Braxton Berrios did with one of the Barstool shows, and I just made a video on it earlier today. And basically, he said that they were asking about his contract, and he said it takes 2. All right. Now, we've heard that before. Now, back when we needed a center, and I'll say this quickly, I promise, but we needed a center. Matt Paradis was out there. Gary V was his agent. We all thought it was a slam dunk. Get the best center in free agency, Gary V, Jetsfan, all that. And Gary V tweeted, it takes 2 to tango. meaning I haven't even received any interest from the Jets yet about the best center in free agency. So Berrios saying it takes two. Kimberly, do you get any like spooky feelings? Do you think we're going to end up kind of maybe lowballing Berrios or not showing interest and ultimately losing him?
I mean, I hope not. I mean, we talked about this on the show that like he's definitely, especially what we've seen of him late in the season, he's a priority to have on this team. I think he's just being honest that it does take two. Not only does the player and his team have to negotiate, but so does the team. And I think the Jets have the money to keep a player like him on this team. And I think he's a viable source going into the offseason. So I just think it's a realistic statement. Like it does take two. Like it takes both parties to kind of meet in the middle and agree on the terms. And to be honest, I think he deserves to have a pretty good contract, especially what he's delivered late in the season.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. So, John, are you getting spooky feelings? I look, Kimberly made me feel a little tiny bit better. Like, yeah, it's very
That's
simple.
what I do.
Why are you looking so deep? But I don't know. Maybe it's my traumatic Jets past. But what do you think, John? Is there anything to be worried about here? Do you think we're going to ultimately, lowball them or not show interest at all?
It's weird because Braxton Berrios' biggest value is probably on special teams, although this season I think we saw him take a pretty big leap in terms of his role in the offense. And I think his role in the offense and his relationship with Zack Wilson will ultimately be the thing that gets him re-signed, because he's talked so much about, or they've talked so much about getting him weapons. I mentioned getting him weapons. They have a good rapport. He's the guy who does the dirty things. He will go over the middle. He will take the hit. He's got good hands. He's reliable. And I think he's the perfect fourth receiver for this offense. So I think the steps that he took on offense this year will probably mean that he's got to get a little bit more money than we would have expected maybe 6 months ago if we were talking about re-signing him. But I still think it's worth it. Like I said before, you go out and you get a wide receiver one. Let's just say it's Allen Robinson coming off of an injury in a down year. Then you've got Davis and Moore, and then you've got Berrios. And that's a really good wide receiver core as far as I'm concerned. And that hasn't even talked about the fact that he's an all-pro return man. And what he did in the return game was fantastic. I think the Jets do need to learn from the fact that they let Andre Roberts walk and they let Jason Myers walk, and they have not been able to find a kicker and they have not been able to find a return man until this past season with Braxton Berrios. And who knows if Eddie Pinheiro is maybe the guy, that's going to be kicking field goals for us come next season. But the Jets need to be careful because they have a little bit of a track record of not rewarding these guys with contracts. And I think in Berrios' case, you kind of have to. He's not a must sign because we're talking about a fourth wide receiver and a kick returner. If he wants something that's insane, I think you have to let him go, but I think they'll find a middle ground. I really do. I think he's too important to Zack Wilson and to the return game.
I'm being yelled at, Frankie, in the chat for calling me a pessimist. It's funny because, John, I'm known as like the positive guy. I find positivity no matter what the situation is. But I got to say, I'm scared. I am. I thought it was a no-brainer. I thought it was just easy peasy lemon squeezy. Of course they're going to sign Berrios. Him and Zach are friends. It's great. Everybody loves, it's hunky-dory. And then I hear this, and I couldn't help it. So stop yelling at me, you bastards. I'm just nervous. I'm looking for some pacification here. So, Frank, why don't you...
there was precedent, GreenBean. I just want to say there was precedent because this time last year, we all would have said it's a slam dunk guarantee that they re-sign Marcus May. Now, as it looks right now, it was probably a better thing that they didn't re-sign Marcus May to a long-term deal. But we all thought, one, he deserved it. He did everything the team asked for. He finally started to prove that he was healthy. And it looked like it was going to be a slam dunk, boom, he's your safety. And they wound up not doing it. So the Jets do have a little bit of a track record of not rewarding these guys with contracts. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in Berrios' case, I think you have to.
Yeah. On the other hand, we did sign JFM this season, so we did reward JFM. People seem to forget that we did do that. So I think it'll work out. I mean, if Berrios is asking for 10, 12 million, I mean, he's not going to get it. He's going to get a fair market value. One thing we know about Joe Douglas, he does fair market value. He knows what Berrios' market is, and if he wants over market value, he's not going to get it. And I mean, that's just the way it is. But what I'd say to GreenBean is, don't worry about the they GreenBean. I saw your video earlier. For those folks who don't know, GreenBean was very worried about that. He said they in an interview he did. And I would say don't worry about it because he was asked about the coaching staff. So he's not a coach. If he was Coach Berrios and he said they, then I would say, okay, he's leaving. But because it was the coaching staff, I say he was saying they because he meant the coaches. And in addition to that, I think he was very authentic and genuine that he believes our coaching staff is excellent as opposed to last year when they were not.
Yeah.
And
it's a good point. It's a good point. I'm with you. Did you guys see, before Frankie gets into his next question, did you guys see the interview?
I actually didn't, and I regularly listen to Pardon My Take, so it's funny. I've not seen this one in particular, but it was just a busy weekend. No, John, Kim?
Mm-mm.
No, I didn't. I didn't listen to it. I did read the transcript, though, so I saw the quotes.
All right, I'm going to play it real quick. Yeah, you know, so you just
GreenBean was very worried about this.
I am.
He still sounds worried. He's playing the audio now.
Yeah. All right.
Got it queued up.
Hopefully I can. You guys can hear it. Let me know if you can hear it. Here we go.
No.
You can't hear it?
Mm-mm.
All right, hold on. I'll fix that. Don't worry.
We need a Braxton Berrios voiceover. Now we can't hear you, GreenBean. See these technical problems.
No, it's all right. Because I have to use Windows. I don't have freaking two screens. It's killing me. I can't. I have to manually go back and forth and through the layers. Let me play you guys the next one. So that's the minor one. This is the one that spooked me a little bit right here. It's short, so just check it out.
Why don't you announce you're re-signing right now?
Well, it's two sides. It's two sides.
Fucking spooky, man. Correct. He's just being factual. He's a valedictorian of his high school.
I agree. Also, how can he announce he's signing right now? That kills all of his leverage. He's got to let his agent do his thing. And I know that's the dirty part of sports, but he has to.
Yeah.
This is the secrecy that we do here on the Jets. Do you think Joe Douglas gives his moves out? Absolutely not. He has those draft picks under a lock and key. I feel like this is the same situation. I think he's just trying to scare people. And clearly, quote unquote, GreenBean is succeeded because I feel like you're going to get nightmares on this one.
Yeah. This is what I'm doing. You guys are helping. You guys are helping me. Tom, what's up?
I tell you what, that one thing that maybe puts a reasonable doubt is that all-pro accolade. It just adds an extra multiplier on that number. And I think if that wasn't tied to him, I would feel much more confident it's going to happen. But, they always say in free agency, it takes one GM to be stupid. And if one GM says he's worth 12, it's been nice having him, but he's going to be gone. So there's a reasonable doubt. I do think that, the chemistry with Zach is really an underrated aspect on this. When you have a young quarterback and he has a rapport with the receiver, that's worth a lot. And hopefully they do right by Berrios and reward him for this season. But, you talk about what the Jets have failed to do, what they failed to do for Darnold and what they need to do now. You need to set up your quarterback for success. And I think that's what this offseason is focused around. A big part of that is bringing Berrios back. So I think ultimately they'll bring him back at the end of the day.
That's what you think. Well, that's good. You guys are okay. And I really do. I like the takes. I like the very level-headed thinking. I got nervous. All right, Frankie, what's up?
Well, I want to ask a question about culture. I guess we'll start with Kim. One of the things I read recently was Connor McGovern was saying, I have never been in a place where every meeting, every practice, everything we do is done here with a diligence that I've never seen anywhere else. And I thought this was noteworthy because we talk about the culture change and we're going to change the culture. We're going to be different than Adam Gase and those idiots. Well, then you go, okay, well, how's that going to happen? Well, maybe we're starting to see some evidence, and this Connor McGovern quote is just another piece of evidence that we're seeing a culture change happening at One Jets Drive. What are your feelings about that? Are we seeing a culture change, or is it just a mirage?
Oh, no, absolutely. I feel like there is a culture change big time. And I think that was a huge goal for Robert Saleh coming into this head coaching position, that he wanted to change the culture. And we've talked about this in depth on our show. And I think having a positive morale, having the teams be able to come together, having basically everybody with the same mind frame and the same fight and the same goals. I think that is so important to success. I don't care what the record says. If you're all as a team not playing as a team and you're not all in the same mind frame, then you failed right then and there. So I think in terms of what they're doing and trying to change the culture, I think is off to an incredible start. And I can't wait to see it flourish as the seasons go on. I think it's so important to have everybody on the same playing field, mentally, physically, emotionally, all those things. So I think it's a huge culture change. And I mean, I've been on the team when the morale has not been as good as it should be. I had, 2 great years, and then the last 3 I cheered, the team faltered. So I think it's a positive for sure for this team and for this organization, and it can only go up from here.
Nice.
Yeah, and John and Tom, I mean, you could take the same question. I mean, what are your opinions about the culture? I think it's one of these building blocks, foundational things you got to have, and it seems like maybe we do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go anywhere but up when you come from what the Adam Gase situation was, right?
That's
you know, we had talked about it, I think, on the show the other day too, where, you compare where the Jets might have been had they brought in a guy like McCarthy instead of Gase, and that we might still have a lingering, he's not that bad, so let's give him another chance kind of head coach. And, thankfully Gase was so bad that we needed to clean house and get a fresh slate. And you look at the way the team progressed. I think that's the way to tell is, they started pretty poorly. They had some really rough games in there. The blowout losses in the middle of the season, I think really could have set them back. But instead, what you saw is a team that was fighting every step of the way and improving every week. You saw the special teams get better. You saw the defense get better. And you saw Zack Wilson and the offense get better as the year went along, to the point where, they're punching above their weight class. They're a play away from beating the Buccaneers. They hung it tight with the Bills, through that week 18 game. That type of building blocks for games that are technically meaningless, that shows a lot about a culture in a locker room. So I agree. I think that is the building block, and it's so hard to nail, right? Guys can interview really well for a head coaching position. They can say all the right things. You can point to successes as a coordinator, but you really don't know until you get there. And, I have my my Flex Ryan mug because I think the last time the Jets had a good culture was Rex. And I think Gase is bringing that in, but with a little more credibility on both sides of the ball. He's approaching it as a head coach, not just a coordinator, and the players play for him. And I think that's the coach's job, is ultimately to get the most out of his guys. And I think Salah's done that, and that's the foundation of everything. So yeah, I'm very excited to have him, and I think it's definitely a good sign looking forward for players coming and players staying.
I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but I agree with both of them. And what Tom said about those last couple of games of the season is really, for me, the most critical part. You've got a team that has nothing to play for, playing for respectability, playing for their coach, playing for each other. It would have been so easy for them to just lie down, especially with all the injuries and all the guys in COVID protocol, but they didn't. And when you look across town at what Joe Judge so foolishly said before he was fired about the Giants, that there's no golf clubs at the locker or anything like that. Now, I don't care about the Giants. I don't care if there were or there weren't, if he was right or wrong, but you don't say stuff like that. You watch stuff like that. You don't look for what the coach says. You look for the actions on the field. And what I saw, to Tom's point, to Kim's point, was a team that got better as the year went along. And then even in the doldrums, even when all they could do, they could just turn around and lie down and nobody would be mad at them for losing those games big to teams that were far superior than them in the Bills and the Bucs, especially with their roster depleted. They went out and they played hard, like I said, for their coach and for each other. And to me, that's a winning culture right there.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And it's funny because I was just going to ask you this question. Came in through the chat from Kamal Aguilero, and he said, and I'll bounce this right back at you, John, just in this little twist to it. Do you think that the Giants may have kind of adopted our snake-bitten luck? Do you think that might be shifting right now? Like the Jets are kind of turning the corner. I mean, and we'll get into the Senior Bowl and stuff like that. There's a lot of reasons to think that things might be turning around. You think that we just kind of pawned it off on our crosstown brothers there?
I mean, I think so a little bit, but it's hard because, the Jets have been terrible over the same stretch. I think if the Jets were, on the process that they're in right now, I think if they were a little further along a couple of years ago, we really could have looked at that and said, hey, look, we're turning the tide. But meanwhile, the Giants are an absolute shit show on the other side. But, the Jets have been bad. The Giants have been bad. And now it's all going to depend, if they go out and they get Brian Flores, I mean, I think the Giants will turn around. So, listen, I do relish in the fact that the Giants haven't been good. Right. At the second Giants Patriots Super Bowl, and I know that's ancient history now, but I almost I basically was rooting for the Pats at that point, which feels like sacrilege. Wow. I just didn't want to watch. I didn't want to watch the Giants celebrate again. I was working at the time right by the Canyon of Heroes. Nope. I was working for a Giants fan, and we watched the parade. He was like, let's take a breakfast and watch the parade. I'm like, I don't want to watch this parade. I don't want to watch another team in town. And let them have the parade in Boston or wherever they're, Harvard Yard. I don't give a shit where it is. Let them do that. I don't want to see it happen outside my window at work. So I'm happy that I hope the Giants get this hire wrong, and I hope they continue to have a monkey on their back. But, I don't know. The Jets have been just as bad for the same length of time. So I don't know if we passed it off, but it is nice to see the other team in town struggling as bad as we have.
Yeah, I don't know though. I get it that it was right in your face, John. I get it. And that's, you can't deny being a little bit more sensitive to it when it's right there outside your window. But I don't like hearing that you rooted for the Pats in the Super Bowl.
It's not actively. It's not like I was standing up and applauding Tom Brady touchdowns. I was just like, in the back of my mind. Oh, Kim, come on. In the back of my mind, I was like, I can't. I don't want to. I just can't. I don't want to see this again. I can't watch this happen again.
Yeah, right. John. The way I dealt with that is I slept through the first half of that Super Bowl. I've never not watched the Super Bowl, but I could not care less, and I just happened to wake up to watch the end. But you can't. Don't put that on your resume, John. You're gonna lose everybody.
You're better than that, John. Man. You were better than that.
I don't know, man. I think a lot of people I thought were agreeing with me. I mean, one person, Mitt Flair, said, "Nah, fool, we don't cheer for the Pats." Like I said, it's not like I was wearing a Pats jersey. I'm just saying I didn't want the Giants to win. That's all. I didn't want the Giants to win. It was one of those things. It was like, I'm a Mets fan. You can see behind me. It was like when the Yankees played the Phillies in the World Series. I was like, what do I do? I don't want the Yankees to win, but I don't want the Phillies to win either. It was a tough choice.
Yeah, no, I do get it. I remember saying to my wife, like, this is quite literally worst case scenario. I can't believe this is what I have to endure. And we did that twice. Oh, yeah. It's gross. But hey, so we talked a little bit about this on your show, but the most recent playoffs, playoff weekend last week, in particular, the Buffalo and Patriots game, it went kind of in a fun way if you are tired of Bill Belichick and the Patriots. The Buffalo Bills ran it up on them a little bit. Now, do you think that Buffalo, and Tom, I'll bounce this to you, do you think that Buffalo is like really the team to beat? Do you think that they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl? Are you on board with this Buffalo train, or do you think that we get to root against them and watch them lose next week?
I mean, we're definitely rooting against them next week, right? But I do think they're a legitimate team. They were making a statement. The Patriots have been running the score up on the AFC East and the AFC in general for 20 years now. So I think that was a moment where they wanted to stake their claim as the class of the division, and definitely did that. So look, the defense is good. The quarterback is good. And it's hard to look at their team and see a flaw that's going to be a fatal flaw. And I think the AFC is kind of wide open this year. So, it's hard. You can't count them out, but you can't not watch that game and be happy to see Bill Belichick miserable on the sidelines. You can't watch that game and not be happy to see Mac Jones look pretty pedestrian when all he heard, especially the first half of the year, is how much better he is than Zack Wilson and how great Mac Jones is and how smart the Patriots are. And end of the year, he looks like garbage. He had better players around him, and that's why they got there. But I think it's great. Patriots going down is what we needed. Bills now go up against a good team against the Chiefs, and we'll see how it happens. And this is a kind of one of those proving games, right? You have to beat the best to become the best, and I think the Bills know that. So it's going to be a good matchup this weekend, and we'll see. But I think my head is definitely in one place. My heart's in another for this game against the Chiefs.
Yeah. Well, and before I bounce it all, to everybody else, I want to know realistic prediction. We're talking with our heads. I want to hear what everybody on the screen right now thinks is going to happen in that game. Are you saying that Buffalo's going to win, or are they going to lose, Tom?
I think in my head, Buffalo's going to win this game.
I
know.
Frankie, what do you got? You think Buffalo's winning or losing this week?
Boy, that's a tough one. I mean, the problem is that the Chiefs have no good defense. Or they're kind of okay-ish. How are they going to stop Josh Allen? I mean, the only chink in the armor for Josh Allen is his completion percentage. That's the only thing. He runs for 800 yards. He can throw the ball 200 yards downfield. He throws bombs. The only thing is sometimes he's inaccurate. And this year he was 63%. Remember, last year he was 69%. And I said at the beginning of the year, hey, it looks like regression here. And he did regress, but not so much that he was bad. He was actually, he was good enough. So how can you make him be inaccurate would be the question. And I think, if Steve Spagnuolo is the DC for the Chiefs, he's one of the best DCs in the league. If he's going to do disguises and coverage and robber and this and cop and robber, this and that, and the other thing, maybe. But otherwise, I don't know. It's gonna be a good one. I don't know. I really don't know. But it's gonna be probably one of the more fun games to watch. Tell you that much.
So you see, Frankie's like me. We are what's called wordy. So we take
you asked me for one word, I gave you.
Frank did all that, and he still didn't even tell us who he thinks is going to win. So that's
afraid to say
it. That's good. He's non-committal. I like that. I like what you've done, Frankie. So Kimberly, what do you think's going to happen? Not want to happen, but think's going to happen in that game.
So on our show, I said that the Chiefs were going to win, but in my gut, I really think the Bills are not only going to win this game, but I think the Bills are going to the Super Bowl. I really do. I know, and it feels like fire coming out of my mouth as I say these words, but I just feel like this is the Bills' time. They've never won a Super Bowl, and I just feel like this is it this is their moment. And I don't know. In my gut feeling says that it's going to be a great game. I think that's the reason why this is the final game on the schedule. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game, but I just. It pains me to say it, but in my gut feelings, I really think the Bills are going to win this game. I really do.
Oh,
I know.
To hear you say these things.
Oh,
John, what do you got?
Man, everything Frankie said is so spot on about how bad the Chiefs defense is. And I don't know, obviously I'm going to be rooting against the Bills here, rooted for the Bills as we all did last week, because we're trying to knock the Patriots out and just get that thing sorted. The enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. But now obviously you're rooting for anybody else. So not that I have any kind of love for the Chiefs, but I think this game is a toss up, because while I don't think the Chiefs are going to be able to stop the Bills on offense, I do think the Chiefs have enough firepower to hang with them. So, you know what? Because I want the Chiefs to win, I think I picked them on the podcast. I don't really remember. Kim might, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm going to say the Chiefs win this game.
Yeah, you picked the Chiefs. Yeah,
I don't want to change now, because Frankie made good points, and I was like, man, God, but I don't want to change now. I picked 2 days ago. I picked the Chiefs. I can't pick the Bills now.
John, I picked the Chiefs the other day, but I was definitely lying. So
I was lying too, Tom. You and I were both liars. Yep, sure were.
Yeah. That's funny. He says I was lying. That's great. And I know I said I want you guys to answer with your heads, and the whole time I'm thinking there's no way I can do that. I'm going to answer with my heart, and the Chiefs are going to stomp the mud hole in their asses. That's what's going to happen. I can't wait to see it. I can't possibly even allow myself to say the words. Kimberly, I think you might be onto something, but I can't speak it into existence.
I know.
So I want to let everybody know, this is the Goddamn Jet Show. They all their information, if you want to hear them or watch them or follow them, is in the description below. They have the homepage for their podcast channel and their Instagram page, the main hub. They all have personal pages as well, but you can find the main hubs down there. Now we're going to get into a little bit of a segment, and then when we're done with that, I want to start getting into the chat's questions. So after Frankie does his little thing here that we're so excited to see what he's got this week, he's got a good one, man. I know he does. It's going to be great. After we do that, chat, I want you to know that we're going to be getting into all of your questions for the Goddamn Jet Show and Frankie from Flatbush as soon as we get into and wrap up Frankie's Fact. Yeah, Frankie, you're up, buddy.
That is the best intro. All right, so this week I wanted to go over something called true sack rates. Now, for those who don't know, this is done by Brandon Thorne. So brandonthorne.substack.com. He's an expert at mostly on offensive line play, but he also does something called a true sack rate, because we need to know who are the best, who are the sack artistes, who is the creme de la creme of sacking le quarterback. And you need to know that because some sacks are easy to get. If they forget to block you and you run right in and you sack the quarterback, that's okay, that's good. But if you're being blocked by Trent Williams and then they chip you and they triple team you and you still sack the quarterback, that should get you more points, because that's harder, much harder to do. So we have this thing called the true sack rate, which has categories of rare, high, low, coverage sacks, cleanup sacks, forced fumbles. And the list of players this year who are the best at this are as follows: Robert Quinn, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, Joey Bosa, Micah Parsons, Chandler Jones, Trey Hendrickson. You may notice a trend with all these people. Cameron Jordan, Rashawn Gary, Shaquille Barrett, Leonard Floyd, Hassan Reddick, Matt Judon, Marcus Golden, Harold Landry, Carlos Dunlap, Jadeveon Clowney, Randy Gregory, Preston Smith, Emmanuel Agba, Yannick Ngakoue, Trevis Gibson, Arden Key, Marcus Davenport, Von Miller. Did we notice what all those people have in common?
Yeah, they're not Jets.
Exactly. They're not on the Jets.
Oh, man.
But 4 of those players are free agents, and we might get them. Chandler Jones, Hassan Reddick, Emmanuel Agba, who I think we should look into, and Arden Key, who's a guy on the 49ers who nobody knows, but he's on the list. He's 25 years old. Nobody knows him. We could get him for cheap, and I'm predicting we are going to get Arden Key. And he's on the list of true sack rates, which means you put him on, and these are all edge players. They're not internal players. And so you'd get him, you put him across from Carl Lawson, and this would be something we should look at, because we were supposed to have a defense. Coach Olbrecht said, there's not going to be a pocket. And everybody said, what? He said, yeah, in our defense, there will be no pocket. Well, what did he mean? He meant we were supposed to have edge players. Their names were Carl Lawson and Vinny Curry. They were going to come on the edge. They were going to funnel the quarterback to the middle, and then JFM and Quinnen were going to shed their blockers and tackle him. It's over. See you later. Get us off the field. We're done. We're out of here. Well, that didn't happen because we had injuries, and this is why. And now we don't have anybody on this list. In the year prior, Carl Lawson was on this list. Now, here's the draft. Here's where these people were drafted, in what round they were drafted. See if you notice a trend here. Round drafted. First, third, first, undrafted free agent, first, fifth, second, first, second, third, fifth, third, first.
Wow.
So how do you get these guys? You got to spend a first-round pick, and guess what we got? 2 first-round picks.
That is amazing, man. I think that's incredible. So, look, like you said, Carl Lawson was on the list. So, hey, we kind of have someone that could do it.
We hope so.
Me too. But it is, look, and Jets fans have been talking about this for really a couple years now. We have ignored the edge rusher position with premium capital forever. I mean, we did take a swing on Quentin Coples, Rex Ryan, bypassing everyone's fears about him, that he's lazy and doesn't have the mind for football. He said, nope. I love him. Drafted him. 4 years later, he's gone because guess what? He's lazy and he doesn't have the mind for football. So imagine that. But it's really interesting to see how much we need an edge rusher. Look, we have 2 first-round picks, but the first one is number 4. And like John said before, we have the 32nd ranked defense and no pass rushers on that list. I know we want Linderbaum. I know we want a wide receiver for Zach, but there's a glaring hole on this team, and it's why quarterbacks can pick us apart like they do, and that is because we don't have a pass rush. Kimberly, do you have any thoughts about either Carl Lawson or the lack of pass rush for the New York Jets?
I've always been a fan of Carl Lawson, and I think he will be a playmaker when he's healthy and able to hit the field. It just sucks that we haven't really been able to see any of what he can do, which that definitely can cause concerns. I do think that also needs to be a priority. I know we did pick somebody up in that position recently, but I think Carl Lawson, for me, I still want to see what he can do. I want to see him in training camp. I want to see him be this explosive player. we've all been talking about. And I think he can be that player. It's just hard when you really haven't seen anything tangible because he got hurt before the season even started. So I'm still a fan of his. I still want to see him out there and make a difference for this Jets team. I just hope in training camp we can see that. And I hope he can stay healthy going into week 1.
It's a big ask, isn't it?
Yeah.
John, what did you think about that? First, second, third, first. You know, I did hear one undrafted free agent in there, though. So whoever pulled it in, that did a good job with that one. But what did you think about Frankie's facts and what he brought forth about the pass rushers?
I don't know, man. I'm going to step away from the pass rushers and just broaden it out for a minute. I think it's emblematic of how bad the Jets have been and why we haven't had sustained success. I saw a stat earlier and I was looking for it on Twitter that like something like the Jets have had, 6,000-yard receivers in the last 20 years or something like that, right? In an age where everything's built on offense, it seems we can't consistently get the receivers right. When we were on our show the other day, we talked about how the Jets have not had a Pro Bowl tight end since 1988. Over the course of that time, the tight end position has changed and been revolutionized time and time again by Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez and Gronkowski and these guys. And we didn't even sniff that. And now you look, when was the last time we had a real edge pass rusher? John Abraham? How long ago was that now when you look at it? I understand that Sean Ellis was a nice player, but he was not the explosive player that Abraham was. And obviously Abraham's career derailed by injuries. But you look, it's been 20 years. It's been 20 years since we've been able to address that. So, that's why I get so up in arms when people are like, you can't draft a safety at 4 or you can't draft this player here. Just draft good football players where they are. If you have a need, go and fill that need with the best possible option that you have. And so to me, that's the issue. That's the issue here. It's been pass rusher. It's been wide receiver. It's been tight end. The Jets have just been inept in drafting for the better part of their entire existence.
Oh, it's the saddest thing when you say it like that. And that was an interesting stat, Frankie. They pulled it out. I was on their show a couple days ago, and they pulled out the last Pro Bowl tight end that the Jets had was 1988. Dude, Mickey Schuler. I mean, that's incredible. Even though you on the forefront, you do know it. We haven't had a tight end, but you can't imagine that it's been since 1988 that we haven't had one guy make it to the Pro Bowl. No Kyle Brady, no Johnny Mitchell, no Chris Baker, Fred, what was his name? Fred Baxter. There he goes. Somebody. It's just amazing that we have really been inept. So we haven't drafted a true edge rusher since John Abraham. So this would be 22 years, John. And then, like you said, we haven't had a Pro Bowl tight end, haven't had 1,000-yard receivers. It's like wherever we're focusing, which has really been defensive tackles over the year. We draft so many defensive tackles who I'm going to just go out on a limb and say I don't think they rarely score touchdowns. Defensive tackles rarely. They rarely score touchdowns. Every now and then you see one lumbering down the field like he can't believe he's got the ball in his hands. But overall, they don't do much, and that's the thing. So it's nice to see us shift focus last couple of years to the offense. I want to get to a super chat from M. Kamal Shahini. So forgive me if I got that wrong or if I said it incorrectly or whatever, but I do appreciate the super chat. He says, this show intro makes me want to run through a wall. Love the show, GreenBean. Looking forward to the draft. Time to get playmakers and turn this thing around. I'm sold on JD and this staff. Go Jets. Well, thank you. And on that note, he said something interesting there that is kind of polarizing, Tom. He said, I'm sold on JD. Are you sold on JD? Is there still concern? Because there is a large contingent of Jets fans that you'll see him bring it up daily. He's won 4 games in 2 years or 6 games in 2 years. What are we talking about with this guy? So I do understand they bring up Ryan Khalil, they bring up Pierre Desir, all that stuff. So there has been some clams. The kicker. Do you feel like you're comfortable with JD? Are you sold on him? If so, why? And if not, why?
I mean, it would be hard. It would be hard for me to be more sold on a general manager and somebody running an operation that has won 4 games and 2 games in his tenure. He's doing things the right way, and that's really what you look for. the culture is changed. That was first and foremost. The players, there's a plan, right? We had the John Idzik, Rex Ryan year where the coach and the GM were on different timelines, and then everything was chaotic. We had a coach and a GM who didn't, understand how, offense was supposed to work with Adam Gase. And suddenly we're drafting players that don't fit a scheme, or we're trying to bring in Le'Veon Bell when the coach doesn't want him. It was a disaster. So Douglas came in with the cards completely stacked against him, the worst sort of case scenario across the board. And he has methodically cleaned house and changed the system and put the Jets in a position to be successful. I couldn't be more sold on him. So there's work to do. There's been some misses. I think the kicking game is, I think, the one that frustrates me the most, because I feel like kicker, we could have figured this out by now. And that it took, Eddie Pinheiro to get us competent in that position is frustrating. But you look at the other things and you see the plan. You can tell that this is the offseason where the Jets are going to take a swing. They're going to go in free agency. They're going to go in the draft, and they're going to try and be a contender for playoff spots after this season. And everybody could see the writing on the wall the last 2 years that this is the offseason. They're going to really try to go for it. So it makes sense. I'm on board. He's doing it the right way. Is he going to be perfect? Is every draft pick going to be, is every draft going to be this past draft where we get starters at key positions? Maybe not. But are we going to go and hire with a plan, not overpay for guys? The Jamal Adams masterclass of trades, the not locking into a deal that, just because we have to. It's been great. So Douglas has done no wrong so far. You saw that, he built out an Eagles team that won a Super Bowl. And I think he's in the process now of putting together a real contender with New York. And it's going to come down to the quarterback, right? At the end of the day, the GM is as good as his quarterback. And that's how football works. But man, it's hard not to feel good about the direction the Jets are trending with Douglas.
I'm going to get through another super chat. It's just funny. The comments are really good right now in the chat. But I got to say, Tom, I agree with you. I mean, I wouldn't say no wrong, right? I wouldn't say he's done no wrong. And like we talked about a minute ago, the kicker situation is one. But I agree. It's finally time for us to slow this thing down. Take them out by the root, all the problems. Like, that takes time. You're not going to be able to win too many games when really your focus is, I got to get rid of these losers in here. And whether that's Jamal Adams, Sam Darnold, Leo Williams, Chris Herndon, and on and on and on and on. These were supposed to be the core foundational players, and he had to get rid of them. And it's hard to win when that's your main focus. And I agree with you. I think that he's going to. I think he's in the process of building something stable. Which, oh my God, could you imagine we have a GM and a coach together for like 10 years? Woo, wait, I don't know what.
No, I don't even know what that would feel like.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I know
I have no frame of reference.
No idea.
For that.
None. No frame. We had Rex for 6 years, but we had Idzik for 2 of them. So what are you going to do?
I think Idzik may be the worst GM in franchise history.
But McCagnon now he wants to come to that party and have a talk. That's what he
certainly does. But I just think I think the dismantling of this team started with Idzik, and I think that he just passed the torch to McCagnon. He was like, "Don't worry, I got you. I'll help."
They might as well be
right.
one.
Yeah, I'll continue it. No worries.
Right. So Steven checks in, and if you don't know who this is Sack Exchange from Twitter. The Jets Santa Claus, really, every day, 2 days, whatever it is, he gives away a free Jets item to Jets fans just for picking a number. That's what he does on Twitter. The guy's as legit as anybody I've ever met. He just says, hey, I'm raffling off a Jets hat. I'm raffling off a Zack Wilson rookie card. Pick a number from 1 to 100. And people pick it, and he sends it to them. So, and he even pays for shipping. So I don't know what or how he's doing that, but he's been doing it, I guess, for well over a year now, Steve. So I appreciate you just being among us in our Jets fan group. But he says, first of all, love you all. Second, wishing Carl Lawson regains form next year is wishful thinking. Oh, Kim, he doesn't agree. Recovering from an injury like that is very few come back as good. Draft a defensive end and get me some fast linebackers. So you know what? It's an interesting thing. I guess until we see him on the field, we can have this debate. I mean, the good news is, Kimberly, is that Cam Akers had the same injury and came back and played very, very well. So, John, any thoughts on Carl Lawson? I heard Kimberly and what she thinks on, about him, but do you think he's going to be able to come back and play maybe up to what we expected him to, or are you expecting maybe a drop off?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the guy already. Somebody mentioned it in the chat too. It's Cam Akers. I mean, 6 months later, he comes back and he looks like he's in midseason form. Now, I understand every person is different. Every body is different. Who knows, what the future holds for Carl Lawson. And I think that you can address getting yourself some insurance like we talked about on our podcast 2 days ago, while also just continuing to make the team better. I've said since the beginning, if Hutchinson or Thibodeau are there at 4, you take one of them. It doesn't matter if Carl Lawson is healthy, if he's injured, if he comes back, if he's half the player, if he's 75% the player, go get another great edge rusher and figure it out. So I'm still looking to go in that direction anyway. And to, Frankie's point before with all the stats, I mean, there's a few people, if for some reason we can't get Tibbs or Hutch, there's a couple people on that list that are free agents that I would sign, and I would look to, put some pressure on the other side and also take a little bit of pressure, no pun intended, off of Carl Lawson to return to form immediately. So, right. I would address it regardless. If he's 100% the same player, I would still act the same way. I would still go draft or acquire another defensive end.
Yeah. And you never know, like with injuries, sometimes you come out better than when you were before you had the injury. There are so many players that have had injuries, and like myself included, I had a torn ACL meniscus. They told me I would never dance again, and then I worked my butt off in physical therapy after surgery, and I became an NFL cheerleader. So I think Carl Lawson seems to be the type of player that wants this so badly. And I'm sure he's not in the offseason sitting on the couch eating ice cream all day. I'm sure when he gets the green light, he's going to go into therapy, become stronger than he was, faster than he was. Trust me, I think we're going to see a different Carl Lawson, a better Carl Lawson coming into this year.
That's a great point. I was going to say that if anybody could come back, and I don't think we should count on it. Like Steven's point is a good one. We shouldn't count on it. We should definitely have contingency plans and resiliency, of course. But if anybody could come back from this and be a Cam Akers type, it's going to be Carl Lawson. That dude is a warrior. Remember him in One Jets Drive and all those crazy workouts he was doing? Right. I mean, no. And he was like, you got to, why? They said, why are you doing this? He said, you got to love it. If you don't love it, what are you doing? And I love this. So he loved it even then, doing these insane workouts by NFL standards, insane. And so, that if anybody's going to come back from an Achilles, it's Carl Lawson. But we should have resiliency in place, of course, too.
Yeah. That's what Salah said about him, right? To echo Kimberly's point. He said when Carl Lawson went down, he was asked, about the injury. And he said, listen, this is as freak gets. Carl Lawson does every single thing that you want to see one of your players do. Everything from the diet to the workout to, just everything about him. Sleeps enough. Like he went through the whole litany of items. And it's like, sometimes this stuff happens, but I agree with what you guys are saying. And I agree with Steven too. It's like, hey, we have to still, I would still take, if Tibbs or Hutchinson are there, you grab them. It doesn't matter who you have on your team. You grab one of those guys. It's rare that somebody comes out like that are quite as good as those two, and you do it. At the same time, I think I'm expecting Carl Lawson to come back too. And wouldn't that be nice to have a Thibodeau and a Carl Lawson and a Quinnen Williams all running toward the same guy with a ball in his hand? I think that would be pretty neat. We got one more to get through, then we're going to move on to the questions in the chat. Don't forget, guys, if you have questions for us, please leave them in the chat. We will try to get to as many as we can before we bring on Watu for some free agency and to talk a little bit about Bradley Anai, our newest edge rusher. So Kamal Shahini comes back with another one. Thank you, sir. And he says, compared to the clown show the Jets had before, JD knows how to draft. Can't win without drafting good. Most of the draft picks are 50-50. JD, not perfect at all. John, what do you think about that? You think JD's got a little bit better or worse with his draft pick so far? 2020 is kind of rough. 2020 looks good. Where do you sit?
I echo what Tom said earlier. I have a lot of faith in Joe Douglas. I really do. I think if you look at just some of the trades he's made, the way that he's fleeced some of these teams on Sam Darnold, obviously everybody knows about the Jamal Adams deal. I mean, the pick that he got from the Vikings for Chris Herndon, and I think Chris Herndon had 4 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown this year, and I'm pretty sure he got a 4th round pick. So when you look at some of those acquisitions he was able to make, I mean, those are slam dunks. When you look at the draft, every GM in every sport's going to have hits and misses. You look at a guy like Brian Cashman, half the Yankee fans love him. Tom can speak to this. Half the Yankee fans hate him, but he's got things that he does well and he's got things that he doesn't do well. I also think there was a schematic difference in the fact that you look, when he got hired, the timing of his hire was strange. And so he didn't really have, his full grip on the reins of the franchise when he was making those drafts in 2020. It was really Adam Gase's team, and there were players to fit Adam Gase's scheme. Now you go back and you look with another full year under his belt, look how successful the 2021 draft seems to be. So, every GM is going to have hits and misses in the draft. You wish that they were a little bit better. You wish there wasn't a James Morgan pick along the way, sure. But, that's just how it is sometimes with GMs. So I have full faith in him. And also, I've seen a lot of Jet fans on Twitter really, really bash the fact that they dump on the draft because Mekhi Becton got hurt. Mekhi Becton is the obvious choice where they drafted him. He looked like he was going to be an absolute stud. Yeah. You can't fault him for getting hurt. You can't fault Joe Douglas for Mekhi Becton getting hurt and saying that that sinks their whole draft.
Yeah, he only had the one injury in college that kept him out. I think it was for one game. So he didn't come in with an injury history or anything. But I'll tell you, like Kimberly said about Carl Lawson not sitting on the couch eating ice cream, someone else might be. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying he might. He might if all the reports are true, which I don't buy into anyway. So we're going to get to some questions here. Frankie, if you wouldn't mind perusing the chat too and just kind of pulling them out. I want to start with this one from Pierre Franklin, and I'll bounce this over to Kimberly first. If Thibodeau or Hutchinson are available at 3, would you call the Texans to try to make a trade up to guarantee one of those guys, or would you kind of sit and take your chances that somebody else isn't going to try to jump you, and or that they'll take them? Would you call them and try to make a trade to ensure that you get the pass rusher that you want?
It's kind of tough.
It's a good one.
It is a good one. I think I would just sit at 4, because you don't know what the Texans are going to want out of this trade, and if I'm not willing to give up whatever they're asking for, I think I'm happy with both of those choices, and I'm just gonna play Russian roulette with this and just sit at 4 and see what happens.
Oh, Tom, what are you doing?
That's tough. It's funny. I saw John's face too, and that question
I know.
came up. I know his I'm anguished over this decision face.
Yes.
Look, honestly, we have the capital. I think you go for the pass rusher, man. We have John Abraham is the thing, and I think that's the example we look at. And the other thing too that I worry about a little bit is the Quentin Coppols example of reaching for a guy who's an end rush that maybe doesn't have, he has a flaw that causes him to drop, and then you take him at 10 or you trade down and take him at 15, but there's a reason he fell to 15. There's not a real reason that one of these guys, Tibbs or Hutch, falls besides a quarterback, kind of making a run up a board. And I think I'd have to do it. Obviously I don't think you'd give up the 10, but I would make a move if you're talking later capital or maybe future draft picks in an upcoming draft. I think I'd have to really, really strongly consider it. And, gun to my head, I'd probably do it.
John, while we're on the subject, what do you do? I think he did say for a 3rd, so my bad, but keep it going. Would you even consider it?
I would consider it. Like Tom said, I would consider it for future draft capital, and I would consider it for a later round pick. Obviously, you're only moving up one spot, and you're swapping one spot with them. So the price that you would have to pay shouldn't be prohibitive. You're not going to have to give them the 10. I don't know if you'd even have to give them next year's first or anything like that. I know there's a draft calculator. I don't have it in front of me, but to move up one spot, that means that they don't really love that player and they're willing to take somebody else, and they're just moving back one spot. Whoever you don't take is still going to be available for them anyway. So I think you have to at least entertain it. That said, I don't know, man. I think I want to not give up any capital and just stand where I'm at and pick the best player I can with 4 and the best player I can with 10. I've kind of said that over the last several weeks. And so for no other reason, I just don't want to really hedge now and change that. But I do think it's one that you can entertain because you're only going one spot.
Ooh, you're going to stick with your own statements, huh? I got to start doing that. I changed my mind every 15 minutes. Didn't you say? I'm like, yeah, I did, but I don't agree with that any longer. I'm on the other side of the argument these days. Frankie,
like Tom said earlier, just be like, I lied about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know I said
Liar.
that, but I lied. That's awesome. Frankie, you see any questions from the chat?
Not a question, but Jets Forever says something I'd like to point out. He says Pinnock and Davis is a better safety tandem than Hyde and Poyer. Now, nobody in the world is a bigger fan of Jason Pinnock than me. Okay, he trained right down the street here in Pittsburgh. I love Jason Pinnock more than probably anyone other than his own mother. But Jets Forever, you're either trolling or you're on drugs. So please tell us in the comments whether you're trolling or on drugs, and what drugs might you be on? Because come on, bro.
Because we need some. That's what Frankie said.
Whatever drugs those are, we would like to have some. Yeah.
Yeah. Just not me, of course. I don't do drugs, but Frankie definitely wants them. So there is a super chat, and this is an interesting one. Thank you, Mumtaz. Good to see you around, buddy. He says, fact that rumor is, it's an interesting way to say that. Fact that rumor is we are trading down. That was tricky. Fact that the rumor is we are trading down pick number 10. It means we see at least 4 can't miss players: Hutchinson, Thibodeau, and Neal. Who is the fourth? I would throw up if it's Stingley. So, Tom, what do you think? I mean, I know who I think it is. If there is a fourth, lock type player, who do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Hamilton. There's a reason that there's a talk or a conversation about him potentially going 1 overall. That's crazy, but there's a reason, because he's that talented and that good. Stingley, I think the thing that scares me with Stingley is one of the things that held us back this year is the injuries, right? Like, you have a defense, you have an offense, and guys missing games was one of the things that really set the Jets back this year. I don't know if you can roll the dice on another, D. Milliner, maybe, a guy who's hurt, banged up in college, going pro. So I think Hamilton's the guy. If we said earlier, but if those pass rushers are gone and Neal's off the board, I would take Hamilton. I think he's the can't miss. I think he's a game changer, and you need game changers on your offense and on your defense. And I think it would just really, really move that Jets defense up another level.
Yeah. Kimberly, do you agree? Do you think that Hamilton is the fourth out of that group? Do you think if there are 4 can't miss, it's Hamilton, or do you have another guy for us?
Yeah, no, I agree with Tom completely. I also like Notre Dame, and I like what he's done in his career. And I think he's a playmaker as well. And I think if those 3 are off the table, I feel like Hamilton is an obvious choice to go with 4.
Yeah. Well, and John, just quickly, I'll take the other side of that question. Do you think it's a rumor or it's a fact that the Jets are going to end up trading pick number 10? What do you think of that?
I think it's a rumor. Like I said a minute ago, I wouldn't trade either of the 2 top 10 picks. I'd keep both, and I would draft the best player I possibly could, because I think that the Jets have talent sprinkled throughout their roster, but I also think they have a lot of holes, and I think you fill those holes with top 10 talent as best you possibly can. But having said that, I think there's more of a possibility they trade out of 10 than they trade out of 4. I think 4, they're going to be there. I think 4, they're going to pick whoever it is. Maybe it's Neal. Maybe it's Hamilton. Definitely could be Tibbs or Hutch if one of them fall. And I think that's why they're going to stay pat there. I think at 10, yeah, I think you could take the center. I think you could take a wide receiver, but I also think you could trade down and try to get a little bit more draft capital. I wouldn't trade down super far. I don't think I'd trade past maybe 15, but, because I'd still want a really high value pick. But, I think it's possible. But if you had to answer it, I'd just say it's a rumor at this point.
Yeah. Well, and Kimberly, real quick, you worked for the Jets for some time. Jeremy Cravat, who's actually in the backstage area right now. He looks like he's sleeping, the poor fella. He says
hot sauce.
Yeah, he's right. Poor guy. He's been working hard all day. So he says that if the rumor came from the Jets, JD leaked it on purpose. Do you think there's any truth to that stuff, that JD or the Jets in general would leak certain things to make people think something other than is true? Do you think that kind of stuff is coming from the Jets?
Not at all, because there were things that I remember when I worked for the team and was at the athletic training center that I would hear things, and it was almost like an unwritten rule. You didn't say it. I always knew, when I remember my rookie year when we had Geno Smith and Mark Sanchez was still there, actually having conversations with Woody Johnson, that they made the decision on Thursday that Geno Smith was starting, and nobody knew yet what that decision was. So to be honest, I think it's just like New York media being New York media and just making shit up, in my opinion. I don't think Joe Douglas is the type of person to leak anything. I think he's so secretive, and the Jets organization as a whole does not like to create unnecessary drama where it just doesn't need to be. So I think this is kind of just fluff, to be honest.
So you knew that Gino was starting before we knew? That's incredible. I want to know that stuff. I promise, New York Jets, I will never say anything, but I would love to know.
Oh,
no.
That was like the coolest thing, is like knowing things, and like you couldn't tell. Like my father is a diehard Jets fan, and it like broke me when he was like, "Oh, so what's gonna happen this week?" I was like, "I can't tell you. I promised Woody Johnson I wouldn't say." Like, what a statement, though. Like, who says that? Like, "Oh, I promised Woody Johnson I wouldn't say anything." But, like, just to like be a part of that conversation was just so cool, and like something I never thought I would ever experience.
That's incredible.
Kim, do you think GreenBean missed his chance to be a dancer, or can he make a run at the flight crew?
Well,
I think he would look great in the uniform. I'm not gonna lie. We have like different styles. I think you could do it.
We need a bearded one. There's not too many bearded cheer.
No,
cheer
there
folks.
isn't.
You see,
I think you could do it.
Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate that. That makes me feel nice. I feel better about Barrios now. So, Frankie, you see any? I see a few questions coming in the chat. You got one for us?
I got a good one. Kamal Ajalero. Sorry, Kamal, if I butchered that. How do you guys feel about drafting Trey McBride in the late first trade down? Now, this is a hot topic. Some people may know that the greatest thing for GreenBean in his whole life is tight ends. I think thinks about tight ends nonstop when he's not thinking about becoming a cheer guy. So Trey McBride, of course, is most people's number one tight end in the draft. Doesn't say that in the question, but he is on most consensus number one tight end. So if we traded down, would we want to take Trey McBride in the late first, which would be, according to most, a little soon to take him? But our need is so great, maybe we would want to grab him. Let's say, Tom, what do you feel about that?
I mean, if they made that decision to trade down, I would never be against adding a weapon like that and adding an option at tight end that could make a difference in the offense. You know, I said earlier, the Jets need to take care of Zack Wilson first and set him up to succeed. And then everything else is a nice to have. And 32nd ranked defense, you do want to invest in the defense. You need to make that better. But you saw with the Chiefs, right? Like, you got Mahomes set up, you got him to Tyreek Hill, you got him all these players, and then you made the defense a little bit better and they won a Super Bowl. So I think if the tight end is there, and, obviously free agency is a factor as well, if they don't, make that move and there's not that number one guy you're able to bring in prior, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I think, when you have the capital, you can roll the dice a little bit. And the Jets aren't 1 first-round pick, 1 second-round pick, 1 third-round pick, 2 firsts, 2 seconds. Like, you can take a shot with a guy a little early if you think that's the guy, especially with the Senior Bowl stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we are going to be coming in the Senior Bowl as some of their tight ends, all of which I think of course, that's a very long, but nonetheless, we're coaching, all those guys in the Senior Bowl, and GreenBean, we can't draft them all now. We can't draft.
Yeah, I want you to know that we can draft them all. That's what I want you to know.
We literally cannot.
I'm with you. I'm with you, GreenBean. I saw a couple people in the comments throwing this out there. I mean, I don't know if I would trade back and take him in the first, but if the Jets were ever able to get their hands on Dalton Schultz and McBride is available at 35, I would sign Dalton Schultz and draft McBride at 35. That's slam dunk. You don't even have to ask me the question. Even 100%. If we go out and we sign him and we give Schultz the bag, I'm still drafting McBride at 35.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's exactly what I did in my off-season master plan, John. That's exactly. I'm like, hey, it is time. It is time. And we got Kenny Yeboah as the third, just sitting there simmering, grooming. He's just waiting to just slowly climb up the ladder. But we got a vet stud and a rookie stud and a Kenny Yeboah behind him. I think it's fantastic. I would love to see a tight end room like that. So we're going to do one more super chat, and then I'm going to bring on Watu with some Bradley Anai and edge rusher free agency chatting. So, John, I'll bounce this right back to you. Philly's 19th for our 35th and 4th rounder. What are you doing?
I mean, yeah. Does that mean that we're picking 4th, 10th, and 19th? I'm going to assume that it does.
Right. So we're giving up our first, second round pick and our 4th rounder to jump up to 19. I don't think the value's all there, Ed. But what do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd have to give up more than that to move up that far. But if that was the deal, I mean, you'd have to consider it. I don't want to hedge, but it also depends on who's available and things like that, like at the moment of the draft. Because like I said, I'd be perfectly content taking, let's say, both pass rushers are gone. I take Hamilton at 4. Maybe I'd entertain Linderbaum at 10. And then I could stand pat and wait and try to get McBride either late in the first round or at 35. But yeah, I mean, if there's somebody you love and you can make that deal, go do it. Sure.
Yeah, but I got bad news for Edward. Philly would never do that. Why would the Eagles do that? They have 3 first round picks. What they want to do is infuse their team with elite talent and then see what Jalen Hurts can do with elite talent around him. They made it to the playoffs with pretty good talent. And so they're going to keep their 3, in my opinion, they're going to keep their 3 first round picks and then have a really strong team next year plus Jalen Hurts and then say, okay, what do we got in Jalen Hurts now with talent around him?
Yeah. Well,
it's a great point out of Frankie. It's because it's the same situation that the Jets are dealing with. We got Zack Wilson. You want to surround them with weapons. I said before, I wouldn't trade either of our first, top 10 picks. Why would Philly trade one of 3 first rounders when they can just surround Hurts with weapons?
Well, because they're dumb. That's what we're hoping on. And just like so many Jets organizations have done in the past, like trading 2 firsts for Dwayne Robertson, it's like, it happens. And I hear rumors from Jets fans, it's not necessarily founded, that Philadelphia wants to use 2 of their first to jump up to 10. So I'd consider that one too. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in Y2K. Again, I'm not sure if you guys kept up with it, but the Jets did sign a pass rusher yesterday, somebody that's very young with a lot of potential upside, Bradley Anai from the University of Utah, a Utah Ute, who everybody's loving Devin Lloyd in this draft. He's also a Ute. So, it's not like Utah's one of those, universities that doesn't produce talent. So Bradley Anai ended up being a 5th round pick in the 2020 draft, and his practice squad contract expired, and Joe Douglas swooped in and grabbed him. So we're going to get some stats on him and some other potential edge rusher free agents before we hit to the draft by saying hello to Y2K himself, the president of the Virginia Jets fan club. What's up,
Presidente?
How you doing over there? You good?
Doing fantastic. How are we doing tonight, guys?
Doing good.
Good.
All right.
Solid.
So, Y2K, what do you got for us? What is up with this guy, Bradley Anai? Anything to be excited about, or is it just much to do with nothing?
There's a few things I find pretty interesting about Bradley Anai. The first thing, going back to what you mentioned, that he played at the University of Utah, the Jets also have another player from the University of Utah on their roster, GreenBean, one of your favorites, Javelin Guidry.
That's right.
Slight sarcasm. So, yes, that means the Jets have the 2 Utes. Now, besides that,
hey,
I'm just looking for a way to drop
two Utes.
I like that.
He said 2 Utes.
Yeah, 2 Utes.
Okay, so just to give you some of this guy's accomplishments, he grew up in Hawaii and then played at the University of Utah. He was first team All Pac-12 the last 2 years. He was 3rd team All-American his senior year, which is, pretty solid. I like for some stats I found interesting, his senior year, 14 tackles for a loss. In other words, he made some impact plays. And another thing with his sack totals, they went from, in his freshman year, he had 2 sacks. Sophomore year, 7. Junior year, 7.5. His senior year is when he broke out, and he had 13 sacks. So he's gotten a little better, probably some raw talent, but he's been getting better and better at it. I'd say one of the concerns I have is he doesn't have a whole lot of length. He's kind of stocky. His arms are 32 inches, so he's not going to get a lot of extension. He really relies on quick burst, acceleration, that initial burst that he has. That's what works for him. He has a great motor. Great effort. Watching some of the videos that I saw, he is relentless in trying to beat his blocker and get to the quarterback. I think, to give you an idea, but let's go a little deeper than that. One of his hobbies growing up in Hawaii, he likes swimming with sharks.
Ooh.
Okay, this guy is a shark swimmer, and he says he feels like sharks get too bad of a rap from people who just don't know about them. He calls them his sea dogs. Hey, sea dog, how you doing there? You know,
he pets them.
He's a tough guy.
Wow, I didn't know this.
I mean, is Green? This is probably a question. Well, question for anyone who might know. Like compared to Timmy, the way I see this guy, he's a potential competitor for Timmy Ward's position of DL7 or 8. He's not, he's not going to take over for Carl Lawson. So, like, where does he stack up against a Timmy Ward, who's basically our DL8 or DL7, depending how you look at it?
I think he's probably on that level. I would say he's a rotational piece at the most. You know, with the short arms, he's not going to be much of a run blocker. You know, he'll definitely give the effort that he can give, but he could be sort of like a pass rushing specialist, if anything. He definitely was playing behind an outstanding front seven in Dallas. I think the coaching change from Mike Nolan to Dan Quinn did not do him any favors. So I think he saw the writing on the wall. You know, it's one of those situations. If you get a decent contributor from a situation like this, you know what? You just call it a win. But do you expect him to be a starter? No.
Yeah, that's the same as Timmy Ward. Then, yeah, basically the way I see it, he's going to compete with Tim Ward and Jonathan Marshall.
Well, and maybe Jabari Zuniga. He might be the guy to push Zuniga off the roster if that competition takes place. The truth is that he's got a lot of potential upside, but it's not like his projection wasn't to be an every down starter. He's more of a situational guy. But guess what you need? You need those situational guys. Yeah, I mean, they're incredibly valuable. So I think this is a good low risk, high potential reward signing from Joe Douglas. So, and it shows too, man, the guy is like, I mean, technically speaking, every general manager's, on the horn, sniffing the ground, all that sort of stuff. But Joe Douglas does seem to pull this stuff together at some really odd times, out of nowhere, let's say. This one came out of nowhere, and I think it's a net positive, at least for the potential that he brings to the training camp.
And and he chose to come here. Guys, when they get released off calls from a lot of different teams, and he chose to come here. That says something. A lot of that is about opportunity. Okay, let's go to a team that's not going to the Super Bowl because I can make the roster. But on the other hand, there's a lot of bad teams that were probably calling him. Houston was calling him. Jacksonville was calling him. All those teams were calling him here. So I think pretty good too.
Yeah, well, it is. All that really means is that he looked at this roster and goes, "Oh yeah, I have a chance there. There's nothing. They got nothing. I might even start."
What? Zuniga? What? I'm better than Zuniga.
Price up. Yeah, I might start over there. So that's awesome. Hey, do you guys have any thoughts on Bradley and I, one way or the other? Tom, do you have any intel, or you think he's going to be bigger than we think, or what do you got here about Bradley and I?
I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is always going to be that he chose to come here and that JD saw something in him, right? We've all had a nice word to say about his eye for talent, and that he's choosing to bring him in now, add him to the 90 man and give him the opportunity and lock him into being with the Jets. That means something. And even if it is just a situational thing or a contributor on special teams, there is real value in that. And I think the Jets have shown that they're building from the ground up and identifying guys that they see fitting solid scheme. So I think it's nothing but good. And, hopefully things work out and we all look back 12 months from now. I was like, wow, can you believe we got him off a practice squad? Wow.
Yeah, I like that. John, what do you think about Bradley and I, one way or the other? You got any thoughts?
I honestly can't say it any better than Tom just did. He said almost exactly what I would have said. So everything he said is spot on for me.
All right, cool. Kimberly, you got anything different about Bradley?
I heard that. I heard that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Tom is the official spokesperson for the show as far as Bradley and I is concerned.
Yeah, right. Right. That's it seems to be that way. So, Watu, what other free agent edge rushers do you think would be of note for us as we slowly creep toward free agency March 16th?
I went through a bunch of different players, and I'm actually pretty much in lockstep with Frankie. If the Jets were to sign one in free agency, Emmanuel Ogbah is one who would really intrigue me. But this is definitely, he's having a career season right now. So I think this is one of those situations where he was pretty good in Cleveland. He has a 1-year deal in Miami. He's having a fantastic season, really. Is this a situation where he's really putting it all together? And do you trust giving a player like this, a 3 or 4 year contract? Myself personally, maybe a rotational piece, maybe I would sign, but my hope is we'll address edge rusher in the draft and pair that player up with Carl Lawson.
Right.
But looking at a lot of the guys that I'm seeing, you have a lot of aging veterans here. I mean, Chandler Jones is still playing great, but is he coming to the Jets? Von Miller, I'd be surprised if the Rams let him go. And then you have some hangers on. You have the Melvin Ingrams, you have the Justin Houstons, the Jerry Hugheses of the world. Maybe you give them 1 year. But we've seen the tendency of Joe Douglas. He tends to go young in free agency. So I don't think we see a whole lot of 30-year-olds coming to the Jets. So would you take a shot on a Randy Gregory? I mean, he's got talent, but what's going on up here half the time we wonder. And that penalty he took against San Francisco, that holding penalty, it just epitomized that in that spot. Do you trust a player like that? I really don't right now. So Ogba's one. One other guy I have a little bit of curiosity about is Derek Barnett from the Eagles. He's had 5 years in the league. He's put up 21 sacks, which is pretty good. He'd be a decent rotational piece as well. Maybe you give him 2 or 3 years. But for me, Ogba is the only guy I've seen from the defensive end standpoint who gives me any kind of real excitement.
Chandler Jones, too. Remember, the Jets fans were talking last year about signing him, trying to go steal him. And a lot of Jets fans, no, he's too old. Then he comes in game 1 and has 5 sacks in one game, and everybody went nuts. And then he only got, I think it was 4 sacks the rest of the year. Maybe it was 5 the rest of the year. Now, that's not terrible, but it did show maybe he was really amped up for game 1, and then he just settled back into being an aging player for the rest of the year. Still good. But, John, do you have any thoughts about maybe going in the free agent route for our edge rushing help, maybe even if it's just, rotational or anything? Any of the guys that Wat2K brought up strike any interest in you?
Yeah, they really don't. I mean, they do to varying degrees. I think Chandler Jones is still an interesting player, on a smaller deal, knowing that his best football is probably behind him, but also knowing that you're probably going to have some younger players out there. And, when you have a guy like CJ Mosley kind of calling the shots in the middle of the defense, you've seen how valuable that can be from time to time. So, I'm not against it, but that's part of the reason why I think the Jets need to really address defense, specifically edge, in the draft, because unlike wide receiver, these guys don't excite me as much. Whereas, if Devontae Adams ever came loose at wide receiver, yes, he definitely excites me. Even Allen Robinson off of the injury, he excites me. And, I think Chris Goodwin is coming off an injury, but also might be a free agent. He excites me. Whereas at the edge, there's not a lot of guys that do. So, would I take a flyer on some of them? Sure. But, it's not the place I would go to address it really and say, okay, this is set now.
Right. Kimberly, how do you feel? And any thoughts on edge rusher? I mean, a lot of us want to go and use the draft for this young, animal edge rusher. You got any thoughts about these free agents and anybody that strikes interest in your side of things?
I'm still on Carl Lawson. I still want to give him a chance. I don't know. I have so much faith in him, and I think it's smart picking up who we just picked up, Bradley. I think that's
Anai.
Anai. I think it's smart we picked him up because I think it's always good to have something in your back pocket just in case plan A doesn't work out. It's good to have plans B, C, and D. But right. I don't see why not. We couldn't draft another edge rusher just to be a part of that scheme. I don't think it's not a bad idea. I still am on the Carl Lawson train. I have really high hopes that he's going to pull it out and be unstoppable. I really do.
Yeah, and I think if we're able to pair him with one of these young guys, it's going to be good. I think Carl Lawson's coming back. I have the faith. That's what we call it, the faith. Were you saying something, Frankie?
Yeah, let's throw in one Frankie fact about these edge rushers. Snaps per sack. How many snaps does it for them to get a sack? The leader in the league, TJ Watt, he's an absolute stud, 33 snaps per sack. Second is Quinn. The rest of the guys in this list are in the 50s or 70s snaps per sack until you get to Arden Key. third on the list, 46.8 snaps per sack. That's a guy we could look at. He's on the 49ers. He doesn't cost anything. No, who he is. 25 years old. He's on the true sack rate list, and he's third after TJ Watt and Robert Quinn in snaps per sack. Now, that guy you could look at. It's not going to cost a lot of money, and it's not going to prevent you from drafting anybody, and he could evolve to a guy that's actually impactful.
Interesting. Snaps per sack. For some reason, that saying that snaps per sack makes me hungry. Why is that? Sounds like snack for snacks.
Harrison Greenbean.
Yeah, right. Something like that. Well, okay, Wat2K, I'm going to bounce you out. We'll bring you back in about 15 minutes to wrap the show up with some Jets trivia. But thank you. All good information. We now know that Bradley and I is a shark whisperer. And I had no friggin' idea that was happening. So
That's
we'll
why I
see you
gave
in
you
a
the
few
big
minutes,
bucks,
man. Yeah, thank you, buddy. So Wat2K, everybody, the president of the Virginia Jets fan club, bringing the facts like he does every week. I want to get to this super chat from John Amorello. What's up, John? Good to see you. He says, if you can guarantee me Pickens, that's the wide receiver from Georgia, in the 4th round, I want Greenbean's mock from the other day. Think you nailed it. Otherwise, I need a wide receiver with a top pick. John, this is what you were talking about. Is there a specific wide receiver that you were leaning towards if the Jets go and get Zack Wilson, another weapon up top?
What's his name from Ohio State comes to mind. It's blanking on me at the moment, but he would be the only dude in the top 10 that I would look at. But I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go that route. I just think they have too many holes in other places. And like I said, I think that they could address this need on the free agent market or via trade. That's what I would do. And Jamison Williams, I think Jets forever. Garrett Wilson. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Garrett,
near
and
Jets
Chris Olave as well.
And I do like Olave. I think Olave is tough. And I think, but see, you can get Olave later. Somebody's talking about maybe trading back up into the 1st round with our 35th pick, something like that. I think you can maybe get Olave somewhere around there in a mid 1st round, late 1st round. So I just wouldn't go top 10 wide receiver. I'm not saying you can't. I just wouldn't with what we need.
Right. Kimberly, any thoughts on a wide receiver? Is there anybody that kind of you're secretly hoping that the Jets get? And if they did, you'd be okay using a top pick for any of these guys?
Honestly, no, I kind of agree with John. I feel like we just have other needs that we need to address. And I feel like it would almost kind of be a waste to use that 10th pick on a wide receiver. We just have other priorities and other needs that we need to address in that 1st round.
Yeah, especially when we go and grab Allen Robinson in free agency.
Exactly.
Which I do. Look, man, there was some talk about the Jets maybe trading for Amari Cooper. And that would be interesting because Dallas paid him a bunch of his money up front. So you'd get him for a little bit cheaper. I don't know how the numbers work out specifically, but that would be interesting. Tom, would you like a little Amari Cooper action?
I would definitely sign up for Amari Cooper. I think, he's still not on the back 9 of his career, so he's got some football left in him. And I think on the wide receiver talk, like if you're talking who's the sneaky, like who I might want to walk away with, it is Jamison Williams. And I wouldn't use a top 10 pick on a guy coming off an ACL, but he's a top 10 pick, like up until that injury, he was a guy. And if you're talking about somebody that I might want to try and trade back into the 1st round for and grab before the Patriots do, that would be one I'd roll the dice with because, again, we have some capital to play with. If you're going to try and do something, that's the type of impact player. And, again, if we do go into free agency and bolster the depth in that position, we bring back Berrios, you can give him the chance to rehab and get back to full strength. And now you're talking Elijah Moore and now all these other guys in that room. That's a pretty good roster. So, I think that would be the one that'd be most exciting. The other receivers in there, to me, feel like a reach when there are so many other holes on this team. But again, in Joe Douglas, we trust. And, we have the combine. We have so many things to jump through between now and then. So we'll see how it shakes out. But as of today, that would be the one that's most exciting to me.
Yeah, there's some interesting little wrinkles in this stuff. And obviously, look, we still have the combine. We still have pro days. There's still the Senior Bowl. There's a lot to observe before we really start making our choices, even though we don't get to choose a damn thing. I wish we did. I would have gotten us to at least one Super Bowl. I'm absolutely convinced. But we still have a long time. But it is interesting so far. There's a lot that can happen. And I'm really just psyched about the whole process. Frankie, I don't know if you see any comments. I know there were some questions up top before we brought Wat2K in. But I want to get to this super chat, and then if you see any questions, go ahead and bring that up. This is an orange super chat, which I admittedly don't see very often, John. It's just doesn't come orange very often. So thank you, Jim I. Or is that Jimmy? Well, either way, I appreciate it. And he says, my crystal ball tells me JD will draft one and sign one for 2 positions. Re-sign one player. Oh, this is a riddle. Okay, wait. I got to start. I got to brace myself for this. My crystal ball tells me JD will draft one and sign one for 2 positions. Re-sign one player, everyone expected to hit waivers, and trade for one player that cost us a player and our third. Can't see the names, though, in the crystal ball. Okay. So he thinks he's going to draft and sign one at 2 positions. Tom, what positions do you think those are?
Draft and sign, I'd say tight end has to be one. And receiver. I think those would be the 2 I'd look at. Tight end, receiver.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking, if you can get re-sign in there, which, maybe it could be O-line, because I could see them taking a center and then bringing back either Tardif or Moses or both. But I'm mostly with Tom. If you read it straight up, draft and sign, it's probably, I'd like to see it be tight end because I want McBride and Schultz. So that's what I want.
Yeah. I'm thinking tight end and maybe safety. We sign one and draft one. Kimberly, what do you got? Which 2 positions do you think JD will sign one and draft one?
I'm with you, GreenBean. I'm thinking tight end and safety as well. I think we can just pick up a wide receiver in the free agency and be done with it. I think tight end and safety, that's the way to go here.
Oh, I like it. Frankie, what do you got?
Got a twist Z mind says now this is a hot topic. Would love to hear.
Well, Frankie, no, answer this question, buddy. Answer this question. Sorry, my bad.
But I nodded my assent. Tight end. We got Schultz. Schultz and
hey, Frankie,
a major one of mine.
Frankie, after one. Frankie, you're cutting in and out, buddy. Is that me or is that him?
No, I think it's him.
Okay. Frankie, maybe adjust something. You're cutting in and out. We can barely hear you. I did hear you say tight end, though. I'm fairly certain that I heard you say tight end. So we're all kind of in that same pocket. Frankie, I'll get right back to you in a second, see if you can adjust anything or maybe shut down the 40 pages of statistical information that you have open on your computer. That's helps. What I always have to do.
Yeah, that helps.
Now let's move to the second part of this riddle. I've never had a question like this. Yeah. He said he's re-signing one player everyone expected to hit waivers. Who do you think that is, John?
I don't know. I mean, who's a player? I can't think of a player on the roster that people are expected to hit waivers specifically. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between that and, let's say, Berrios, who I think would be the obvious re-sign here, but waivers, no. I can't think of anybody who's, not at the very least a restricted free agent that I'd want to bring back. Tom, I mean, is there anybody on the roster that you could think of that might hit waivers that he's going to re-sign?
I might be getting hung up on the lingo like you are, and maybe if we broaden it to more like somebody we thought would walk away, that might be a little easier to try and sort of wrap our head around. I think Berrios is obviously the one that we're all kind of hoping will stay at a reasonable number. Maybe May would be an answer to that. He's coming off an injury. He knows the team. He knows the organization. And maybe he wants it to, come back on that. That might be the name I'd go for.
Yeah. If you look at it that way, May is another possibility, I think, for sure.
I'm thinking Fadukasi. That's who came to mind. But I think you guys are right. I think, we're getting snagged on the semantic. I agree with you, Tom. I think that he probably is getting towards somebody that we thought we would lose. Maybe he's not. He's going to come back in with another super chat and go, no, I meant waivers, man. You better. The right way.
I don't have the Jets waiver wire pulled up on my phone here. I need to know.
Well, this is a good one. So now last piece, can anybody on the panel right now, can we think of trading for one player that cost us a player and our third? So we would have traded a first and a third, and we're going to trade for somebody that I don't know who this is going to be.
Cost a player and a third.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do this, but maybe Calvin Ridley, where you give them a player back as compensation and lighten the load. Everybody says he might cost us a conditional second, but if you give them a player and give them a third rounder, maybe you get the job done that way. I don't think the Jets are talented enough to trade players, and I also wouldn't trade for Calvin Ridley, but that's one that comes to mind.
Wow, that's a good. That's good. Maybe because you've heard, I'm sure, maybe a Mims and a third kind of a thing, right? So
Mims and a third, yeah.
All right, Jimmy, how do we do? Let us know in the chat. I know you say you can't see the names, but I have a sneaking suspicion that you might be leaning towards some very, very specific people with this question. That's my thought. So, Frankie, how you doing? Are you back with us?
Am I back? Tell me.
You sound good. Yeah, I think you're back. You think he's back? All right, what do you got?
No, I think he's gone again. He's frozen.
He's frozen? Oh, yeah, look at him. Oh, Frankie. All right, Frankie, I'll come back to you. It's okay, right. Frankie. You know, if anybody gets it, it's me, my friend. If anybody in the world gets it, it's me. I just happen to be sneaking next to this house that has good internet tonight. So I'm grateful. I'm at a horse farm with good internet. So Jordan Victor checks in. He says, how do you want to handle the safety position in the offseason? The room seems depleted, and I don't think May is coming back. Tom, what do you think about the safety situation? I mean, you said you were okay with drafting Hamilton, but we're going to need more than one guy. So what do you think we should do?
Yeah, it's one of those positions too that, you talk about how much do you want to invest in draft capital when the replacement level is pretty close via free agency. So, and it's a veteran type position. So look, I'm a little biased because I am a Notre Dame fan. So I'd love to see Hamilton in there as the impact player, but I think you probably have to couple that with a veteran presence as well back there. Whether it's guys who shake loose from cuts and cap casualties and all that, or somebody who hits free agency. I think it does need a revamp. I think Ashton Davis hasn't hit what we were hoping he would hit, after he got drafted, and they need a little bit more talent in that part. The secondary, considering how bad we thought they were going to be, and it's still the 32nd ranked defense, I think we saw a lot of progress from them, but that's with a safety position really handicapping. So, for me, I think as of right now, it's Hamilton, and then we'll see how else they're able to add to that position.
Yeah. Look, I got to tell you guys, honestly, I mean, unless it's Hutchinson or Thibodeau, Hamilton is my number one guy. I mean, like, it's not agree. Just like, I mean, I want him. That's how bad I want Hutchinson and or Thibodeau more, but right behind them, it's not like a consolation to me. I'm like, yes, if we draft that guy. So John, you got any thoughts on maybe another, somebody to add to the Hamilton pick, if that's the way it goes, or even if we take somebody in the second round or whatever, but in free agency, or we re-sign in May or anything? What do you think?
I'd like to get a time machine and go back to 2002 and draft Ed Reed, if that's possible.
Yeah. Hello.
No, I don't know. I could see, I'm with you. I love Hamilton. I would be excited for Hamilton, but I do think, like Tom said, you have to pair him with a veteran. And I think if you do draft Hamilton, I think a lot of things then open up. I think maybe bringing back May on a 1-year deal, maybe running it back with LaMarcus Joyner on a 1-year deal, maybe going out and signing Marcus Williams, who's a younger veteran, right? He's 25 years old. I think you can do a lot of different things there. It depends how much you want to invest. I do think if you go number 4 with Hamilton, you're probably then not going to sign Marcus Williams to what would be a long-term deal. I think you're looking at a stopgap guy like May or Joyner next to him, but I think there's plenty of ways that they can address it.
Yeah. Kimberly, and I'm going to trim this down for you. Do you want to bring back Marcus May?
No.
I
think we're done here. And we've talked about this so much on our show. I think Marcus May, I think it's time to hang up the cleats. I think we're done here in New York, New Jersey. I think it's Marcus May's time.
Yeah.
Up. Yeah.
Well,
it's funny that I'm sorry, Greenbean. It's funny that Kim said hang up the cleats, because I just have this sinking suspicion, not that Marcus May is never going to play again, but this is the best of Marcus May we've ever seen. And I don't know, Tom, I just have this vibe that he comes back next year, he kind of plays, and then he's out of football. He strikes me as a guy in the next 2 years who's going to be out of football. Just, I don't know why. It just feels that way to me.
So what you mean is that if McCagnon was calling the shots, he'd be getting a Quincy Enunwa contract right now.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, McCagnon would sign him to like a lifetime deal and put him in the Ring of Honor on day one, and he would be retired like 4 games later.
Hey man, if McCagnon was our GM, this is the honest truth. We would still have Sam Darnold. He would have gotten his 5th-year option. He would be extended, and we'd have him for the next 4 or 5 years. We would have absolutely kept Jamal Adams. We'd made him the richest. We probably would have made him the highest paid defensive player in the NFL instead of just safety. And Marcus May, like you said. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that that's what we'd be looking at, and we'd be in the doldrums for an extended period of time. So I am, again, grateful. One more super chat, and then we're doing the trivia. We're bringing Y2K back. I think we're going to get you today, Y2K, you bastard. I think we're going to do it. This is the group. So Wild Billy Boy checks in with a super chat. Thank you, sir. He says, how would you rank this draft for the Jets from 1 to 10? Thibodeau at 4, Hamilton at 10, McBride with the second, and Devin Lloyd with the other second. I'll go out on a limb and say 10. Kimberly, what do you got?
Yeah, that's like a 20. Like that is that is like wishful thinking. Like if everything goes our way, like gift from God type of thing.
Tom, what do you got? What do you think about that one?
I mean, I can't count that high. Whatever the number is, it's bigger than my brain is able to get up to. Yeah, a masterpiece. Love it.
You agree, John?
Yeah, I mean, take an 8, turn it on its side to the infinity symbol, and that's the number I come up with, because that is insane. That would be the slam dunk of slam dunk drafts, period, end of story. You know, if it's 50% as good as that, it would be a home run. If they got Tibbs and Hamilton at 4 and 10, it would be a 10. Out of 10. So adding those other things on is just icing on the cake.
But that's what's possible. That's the infusion we can get this year. Something like that is possible. Like I said, we have 4 top 38 picks, man. Oh, this is an exciting time. So, Frankie, I want to let you know there are some interesting names coming in for you. One is Frankie from Freezebush, and the other one, a liberal Irishman, came with that one. But then he came back and he said Freezy from Frank Bush, which I might like better. So, Freezy, are you with us? And what would you think about that draft if you are?
We would be. I'm not bad.
You might be able to pull it off. Go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, we should be if we had that. If we had that draft,
it'd be good. Okay.
Draft good,
Frankie.
Frankie's got to keep it to caveman speak. Draft good.
Draft good. I know. And we're sorry, Frankie. I feel bad only because I empathize to such a strong degree. I'm usually that guy. This is what it feels like on the other side of it. I feel sad. So maybe other people felt sad for me all these years. I don't know. So we're going to bring Y2K back, and we're going to see what this guy has for us. Now, I want to tell you the rules. Number one, we cannot look anything up, okay? And we're going to give the chat just like a minute to answer, and then we're going to see if they can get it, because if you give them more than 30 seconds a minute, you know damn well they're looking it up. They'll say they're not, but they are. So let's hear what Y2K has to say. Then we'll bounce it over to the chat to see if anybody gets it, and then we're gonna start answering it ourselves. And I'm going to start with Kimberly first, Tom next, and then John to get your answers.
Lord.
Y2K, here we go. Give us your trivia question for the night.
Okay, so first of all, to avert the chat's fears, no, this is not necessarily a question about the New York Titans. So we'll be getting a little more recent this time. So there won't be any complaints there. Okay, the question is, what Jets defensive player holds the record for most touchdowns scored in their career as a New York Jet?
Wait, say that one more time for me.
What Jets defensive player, put it this way, has scored the most touchdowns as a Jet in their career?
What defensive player has scored the most touchdowns while being a New York Jet?
I'm going to be checking the chat. So
all right. So far, I see pretty much two. I see two names popping up right now. Then I see another one. Do you see anybody correct in the chat, Y2K?
I do not.
You guys suck at this. I'm going to tell you right now. I thought there was somebody coming in with the same names. I'm like, oh, they know this already. So
Everybody's
Kimberly,
saying Rivas and Cromartie. I
Yeah.
bet Frankie would have had it if he didn't turn into
it's
into
a Freezy
Frankie
from
Freeze.
Flatbush, or from Frankie Freezy from Frank Bush, I think was the one. So Kimberly, do you have a shot? You want to take a shot at this? You have a guess? Who is the defensive player for the Jets that scored the most touchdowns?
Me.
There you go.
I got
That's a hard
nothing.
question.
That is a hard question. I honestly have nothing. I have nothing.
Okay.
Is this
Tom?
We have
Is
a
this one of
correct
those-
answer. I'm not going to tell you, but we do have a correct answer in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so that means it's not one of those trick questions that there has never been a defensive touchdown for the Jets. Right? It's not.
Right.
No, Tom, there just hasn't been a defensive touchdown in the last 4 years. That's
Yeah, it feels
Yeah.
like it. I'll tell you that.
My gut is
Even
just
Tremaine
like
Johnson had one, for crying out loud. Okay.
I
I
actually was
know.
at that game.
Eccles had
I think
one this year.
in Tennessee. I was down there for that.
Oh, nice.
My gut was just corner from when I was growing up, so I was going to say Aaron Glenn.
Okay.
John, what do
Not
you got?
correct, but good guess.
Oh, well, okay. Because I was going to say Aaron Glenn. So, now I have to pick someone else. Man, I was really putting all my eggs in the Aaron Glenn basket. I literally
Aaron
cannot
Glenn had
even
three,
think.
by the way. Glenn was pretty good. He had three. He had 3 pick sixes.
That's actually very impressive, considering we haven't gotten we had the pick 6 this year, and then it felt like 19 years ago. Man, I don't know. Let's just pick somebody. Let's just pick a ridiculous one. It's not. Yeah, somebody just said it. Joe Farrow, T. Milner. T. Milner didn't even play. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know. Aaron Glenn was my real guess, so I don't have a better one.
Okay.
I'm going to say,
Okay.
I think it is Eric McMillan.
All right. Now let me ask you a question. Are you saying that because that's your honest guess, or because
Oh,
you
that's
saw
my
it on
honest
the-
guess. I saw 3, and I want to say this too. Jeremy's in the back, and he said Eric McMillan too. That was my honest guess.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Eric McMillan is correct. 7
Nice.
touchdowns.
Wow.
7 touchdowns.
Nice.
Eric,
That's
so
a good
who
one.
got it? Who got it first? Y2K.
Jeremy with an underscore with the headband around his emoji. Jeremy with the Zack Wilson emoji. He was the first one.
Jeremy.
So well done, Jeremy.
Where are you,
Nice.
Jeremy? Jeremy, this one. Darrell, he guessed wrong first. Maybe he guessed this, but he got it right. No problem. I want to say hello to Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7, who is in the chat. I'm happy to see you here, my good friend. I bet you didn't get that right, though. That's what I bet. So anyway, we are wrapping this one up. I want to thank you for another good trivia question. You are definitely digging deep, man. These are impressive questions. I got to say, guys, when he first started the trivia, I thought we're going to crush these. I mean, when you compile a bunch of us like this, I mean, there are almost 200 people in the chat. We got 5 people in the panel here, and it's like, of course we're going to get it. And so far, it's not been easy. So Y2K,
Hard.
I
Yeah.
commend you. I commend you. So, guys, this is the Goddamn Jet Show. I want to thank you guys for being here. Kimberly, John, and Tom. Their information to their podcast as well as their Instagram page is all in the description. The links, just click on them and you can follow them. One of my favorite shows, my favorite group of people out there, I think. I always love hanging out with them. They're a good time. But is there anything else that you want to let us know that maybe you have coming up, a big guest or anything like that, John? Anything you want to let us know?
A few of us have some of our merch that you guys can check out. I'm actually wearing the Bart Scott Can't Wait inspired t-shirt. Not sure if you can see that. We also have we've got a Broadway Joe mug, and then Tom's got the Flex Ryan mug dedicated to Robert Saleh. And you can get all these things, different versions of them. So you can get the Broadway Joe in a t-shirt or a hoodie or some wall art. You can get the Can't Wait as a mug or whatever it might be. If you check out at GoTeeCo on Instagram, it's at GoATEECO on Instagram. They handle all of our merch, and you'll see a page for the Goddamn Jets on their website. And you should just go check them out. Got some cool stuff and some more stuff coming down the pike. So
awesome. Well, I love that. We're going to see, before we let you go, I want to just see if Frankie's still freezy from Frank Bush.
Hey.
Yay.
Look at you.
Can you hear me? My life. Now I know what it feels like to be freeze bean.
Yeah, you see, it sucks on that side of things. Sometimes you just feel helpless. It's like nothing you can do. You do everything and you're still frozen. There's nothing you can do. Are you okay, Frankie?
I'm all right. I was a little confused. I had to restart the Wi-Fi. I got it. Mr. Rec told me stop it with the Wi-Fi, Frankie. You need a direct connection. Like I know what I'm doing, Mr. Rec. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lucky I get the camera to work.
Right, you are lucky. Well, good. Maybe you misdirect can teach you a thing or two. Maybe you take that and just plug it in, and all problems are solved. Before we leave, I just want to say hello to Jeremy. He's in the back. There he is. I didn't tell him he was coming on. Jeremy is in the back monitoring the chat and helping us out, making sure that I don't miss super chats and everything like that. Hopefully he did a good job tonight. So I think there's one more before we go. I just want to real quick acknowledge it. Joseph Grana says, play out the scenario of trading back both first-round picks back into late teens, early 20s, and picks Burks and Jermaine Johnson. Rebuild with high volume. Jeremy, what do you think of that?
Play out the. I'm just thanking God you didn't put me on 2 minutes ago and I was still eating my spaghetti because Jets mess would never let me hear the end of it.
Oh, I'm glad I didn't.
Play out the scenario, trade back both first round picks, late teens, early 20s, and pick. Well, I've done this because as you've known, I've done about 1 million mock drafts.
Yeah,
and so I've went the route of like Nakobe Dean being my first pick. Traylon Burks being number 2. That's because PFN's rankings are insane because I don't know if either of those will go that far, but they might. And then having like 1 billion picks for the second and third round and next year, so insane lists of players, tons of draft capital next year. I think I ended up with 6 second round picks next year. It's hysterical, but so it's a fun thing to play out, but I don't think it's actually going to happen, right? We need to bring in I like the idea of if we get the edge with that 4th pick, then definitely strongly consider trading that 10, but not too far because I would love to grab Nakobe Dean is my guy for that second pick.
Yeah, so I don't think I would do this either, Joseph Grana. I don't want to get too crazy. At some point, we got to use the capital, and being up top. Think about it this way. Maybe we won't be this high in the draft again, 2 top 10 picks. Maybe we're in the late teens and after from here on out. Let's get some blue chips and bring them on in. I love your thought process. I love it. I'll give you an A for effort, but I don't think I would do this one. But thank you for the super chat anyway. Guys, I want to thank you so much for being here. Don't forget about their merch, and all their information is in the chat. You can also follow Frankie from Flatbush. His information is below on the Frankie from Flatbush channel. You can find Y2K at the Virginia Jets fan club over at AJ Gators in Norfolk, Virginia. And Jeremy has his super crazy every 15-minute mock channel, NFL Chaos. And when he gets to 300 subscribers, he did 200. He did hot sauce and did a mock draft with the hottest hot sauce in the world. What's 300, Jeremy? Real quick.
A shirt from your site, a shirt from Ryan's site, and a shirt from Matt O'Leary's site.
Fantastic. So when he gets to 300 subs, he's going to give away 3 shirts, one from GreenBeanJetsfan.com merch store, one from O'Leary, and one from Jets Talk 24/7. That's very cool of you, and we appreciate it. But everybody, have a great night. Thank you, Goddamn Jets Show, again for being here. I hope everybody had a good time, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, here we come, baby. Here we come. Here come the Jets, baby.
I want to kiss you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah! You want to run or you want to duck down? You want to duck, just go over and get onto the bench and stay there.
You play to win the game.
My message for the fans, we're all frustrated with where we are right now.
Jets, Jets, Jets.